new ways of thinking about how we talk about diversity. So just the words diversity and diverse population. Instead of referring to the words minority and diverse, starting to refer to people differently in a way that doesn't minimize. Anyway,
Well, it is 6:30, and I think we'll go ahead and get started. If everyone would come on in and have a seat. This is, if you feel like you're far away in the back, you come on up forward. If not, stay back there. Just don't fall asleep, or we'll pick on you. We'll throw something at you there, Dean Davidson, if you start falling asleep from a long day. Well, good evening. It's good to see everyone here. And I tell you what, there's so many people that have been instrumental in putting this week together. Can everybody hear me okay? I know I'm in the mask, so if I start to sound groggily, just tell me, hey, we can't hear you. I'm excited because, as I mentioned, so many people have put their hands on this project, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Diana. Diana, if you give her a round of applause. Diana's working really hard. And this is not an easy thing to get some of these events together. And so, again, I appreciate your efforts and your work. And any members of the Chancellor's Task Force, Chancellor's Diversity Task Force members, any members here I can acknowledge? Oh, thank you for being here. If you give them a round of applause, appreciate it. So you've come to the right session this evening. I will tell you in just a moment, you've got some very esteemed panelists here. And I am really excited to hear what they have to say this evening. And I'm glad, again, that you are here. This is exciting stuff, exciting work. The second annual Diversity Week, this event is entitled Envisioning Inclusivity. I think we have people that are streaming also. Carol has put that together, so welcome for those that are watching us on Zoom or however we have this set up. And I know that we've got some folks here that are tuning in. I wanted to really highlight, before we begin this session, I want to thank several sponsors. So if you're here, I want to thank you for this. So obviously our office has been instrumental in making sure we support this particular week and beyond. Office of Student Engagement, our Disability Support Services Office. I see Vivian here. Oh, all right. Let's give them a round of applause. They're actually here. So thank you guys very much. The Graduate and Professional Student Council, they're here. All right. Give them a round of applause. Undergraduate Student Government. Anyone representing undergraduate student government? There you are. Thank you for being here. College of Liberal Arts. Anyone from the College of Liberal Arts? Okay. The Paul Simon Public Policy Institute. No one here from there? Okay. So I want to especially like to thank Dr. Frazier and his office, the Office of Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. If you could give Dr. Frazier and his group a round of applause. Appreciate that. The Student Multicultural Resource Center houses the Black Resource Center, the LGBTQ Resource Center, and the Women's Resource Center, as well as the Hispanic and Latino Resource Center, which will be celebrating, Christina, right? Our Hispanic Latinx Heritage Month in just a few weeks. So big round of applause there. Great stuff. Few weeks, have even more exciting information there. I know I see Bethany. Bethany, give Bethany a round of applause. She's gone from student right into the fire of working here, right? That's a pretty big switch. So we're glad to have Bethany on board as well. To learn more about our resources and the resource centers, visit smrc.siu.edu. And to learn more about other Diversity Week events, I encourage you to visit diversity.siu.edu. So again, really excited now to introduce or have our panelists introduce themselves. And the way we'll do this, we'll just start with Christina and we'll go all the way down. Just tell us a little bit about the areas that you're in, and then we'll jump right into it. So Christina, would you kick us off, please?
Let me see
if that works.
Is it on the bottom?
Uh-oh. I bet Todd knows. Yeah, let's see.
And Chancellor Wade, since you're away from everybody, if there's ever a period where you need to take off your mask, as long as you're standing away from everybody, you'll be okay.
We're okay. All right.
But I'm just asking that since everybody's so tight, that if they need to take off their masks, if they stand up, move yourself away from your other panelists, so that way you can speak without your mask and then put it back on when you're done speaking.
Great. Thank you, Diana.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here and thanks for the invitation. My name is Cristina Castillo. I am the coordinator for the Hispanic Latino Resource Center. I pride myself to call the most welcoming and safe space in this university. So check us out, come talk with us about everything and anything. We're always there to help and make you feel welcome and special. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
Hello, I'm Chelsea Varela. I'm a criminology and criminal justice major. This is currently my senior year. I'm here on behalf of the Hispanic students on campus.
Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Also, thank you for the invitation. I'm the interim director of the School of Art and Design, and for the sake of this evening, I serve as the president of the Hispanic Latino Staff and Faculty Council, along with Christina. So thank you for being here, and I'm looking forward to this.
Good evening. I am Paul Frazier. I serve as the Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Good evening. My name is Ramesh Nopane, and I'm the Associate Director for the Study Abroad programs here at Center for International Education. And everybody is welcome to come to International Office anytime, between Monday to Friday, definitely. But we are there to welcome everybody and learn about the different cultures within the country and outside the country too.
Hello, my name is Gabby Walker. I am currently a women's basketball player. It's my 6th year, kind of awkward, kind of older than everybody. But I'm also a graduate student for the MB program. My master's program is biochemistry, sorry. And as always, I'm here to represent not only SIU athletics, but also women's athletics.
I'm going to echo everyone again and thank you all for joining us. My name is Bethany Peppers. I'm the coordinator for the Women's Resource Center, and we really are a resource for women all across SIU and in the community, and want to be pushing forward issues of gender equality.
My name is Jose Arroyo. I'm one of the staff psychologists over at Counseling and Psychological Services at the Student Health Center. And I and the rest of the counselors serve the general student population at SIU to help dismantle and systemic forces of oppression and also cater to their mental health at the same time.
Hey everybody, my name is Grace Gunn. I'm a junior here at SIU studying public health and Africana studies. I am the coordinator of Black Affairs Council, and I'm the VP of Student Affairs for undergraduate student government.
Great. Well, thank you for each of you for being here this evening. We're going to jump right in. And I don't know about you, but in my 20 plus years of doing this work in higher education, I've not had a lot of opportunities to talk about diversity. In the last year alone, it's probably more that I've talked openly with everyone about diversity than I ever have in, again, my 20 plus years. I want to break the ice a little bit for the room. Our panelists, I really appreciate them because they're going to be free to share a lot of their thoughts, ideas, things that they've experienced, okay? And out of respect for the panelists, we want them to be able to do that and do it in a safe place. For audience members, when we have time for questions and comments, we want you to feel safe as well, right? To share what's on your mind and ask questions. The only way we're going to figure all these things out is if we communicate and ask questions and do it in a collegial way. And so I know tonight we've had students on this panel. Where are my students on the panel? Could you raise your hand again? We're going to start off with our students on the panel talking about their experiences here at SIUC during their time here, what's worked well and what's worked not so well, right? Things that they think that we really need to be focused on as a campus community going forward. As we continue to try and attract students from diverse backgrounds, if you look at our enrollment counts today, we have a very diverse campus. I think close to 36% of our students are minority or in some diversity category. That's great when you're trying to recruit. So once those students get here, that's the real task, right? Is how do we support them? How do we make sure that they move into the environment and feel supported, feel like they have a voice? So we'll start off classic with our students first, sharing a little bit of their experiences. And so, Bethany, I can't call you a student anymore. So I'm going to skip over you and go to Grace. Would you kick us off, Grace?
Sure. Just for a little bit of clarification, just like my experience overall at SIU is what we want me to talk about?
Yeah, just
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I can, I guess, start with my enrollment here. I did have a good experience when I did enroll into this school. I do have the privilege of my mom graduating from here, so I benefited from the Legacy Scholarship. And honestly, the financial aid is what led me here. I might not want to say put me here, because this was definitely not my first choice, especially since my mom did go here. I didn't want to be just like her. And I honestly didn't want to go to college, especially during my senior year. I really struggled with applying because I wanted to go right into community organizing, because that's what I've been doing since I was 15, 14 years old. And I really struggled because I had a great GPA in high school, but I had a really bad ACT score. And that closed a lot of doors financially for school for me. I had many schools tell me, U of I and NCAD and schools like that, they all told me that I got into everywhere, but because of my ACT score, they wouldn't give me any money. And I'm very happy to see that schools have recognized the lack of need for that, especially during this pandemic, because I've honestly, test scores have withheld me from getting access to certain opportunities since high school, because in Chicago, they have selective enrollment high school since it's such a big public school system. And that whole thing is messed up in itself with the state, et cetera. And so even my test scores in grade school stopped me from being able to get into selective enrollment high schools. And so I was really grateful that SIU had enough, I guess, inclusivity at the time to recognize that that's not needed to get financial aid and to get scholarships that aren't all need-based. Well, they are need-based, but not classified as need-based. And since I've been here, I honestly got right involved with Black Affairs Council, because I knew that if I was at a PWI, I was going to need to find the Black community here, because I've always been surrounded by the Black community, and I wasn't trying to step outside of that just because I went to a PWI. And it did attract me here because I do feel like I was bamboozled. I will say that, because since my mom went here, she has a lot of peers that went here during the late 90s and the early 2000s. And they all told me, oh, you're going to have such a good time. It's a party school. That's basically an HBCU, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I got here and I was hoodwinked, because we were in the middle of no students here. You walk in the student center on a Friday, it's like 4 people in the eating area, and everything was dry. The Greek life was dry. It was just not what I intended or expected out of college, because I only visited HBCUs. This was the only PWI I visited, because of its name for having Black students here. And so I do appreciate that. And the work that the current chancellor and Bethany before me and Avian before me, the past coordinators of BAC and Father Brown and all those type of people on campus, I appreciate what they fed into me, because we were able to collectively feed that into the school and put in all of that legwork, especially them, to try to get Black and Brown students back to this school, because it was very clear that Black and brown students were driven out of this school systemically, because you don't just have a flood of Black and brown students leave consistently at the same time for no reason. Black women didn't stop going to college during that time frame that we didn't have Black students coming here. So I appreciate the space that I was allowed to be able to be a part of that work. And I do think that is unique that we are able to have such a connection with the administration to do that work. Whether if I feel like in the past the administration always listened to that is neither here nor there, but I do think that I'm in a very unique and different position now to actually see the things that I've wanted to see and implement manifested, like things that I started last year, like things that Avian started the year before that. And so far I've had a good experience at SIU. I think I'm very good at peeping the shadiness and the inconsistencies, because my high school was honestly had a very close demographic here. We had about 30% Black students there, and most of the administration was Black, but a lot of what ran the school was rich white taxpayers. So I've had history of this, and I'm happy about it. And I know that I have a different experience of a lot of Black students at SIU since I'm in public health and Africana studies. I'm surrounded by a lot of Black professors and Black chairs of the departments, whereas I don't have time or classes to interact with a lot of people that don't look like me, because non-Black students don't take Africana studies. And I know that that's not the same. And a lot of students come to BAC complaining about how there are no Black students in engineering, there are no Black students, and they feel, pushed out when they're at the business meetings and the things you have to do in the business department. There are students who want to go to the business school, but since it costs more, they can't. And so I'm grateful that I have a passion to be in the spaces I'm in, but not everyone has the same passions as me that will fit into the statistic of being in the COLA building. So they're automatically around more Black people, because a lot of Black students graduate from COLA. So I just hope that I can see more inclusivity in those departments on the west side of campus that are not nearly as inclusive and as welcoming.
Wow, Grace, that was beautiful. And as you can tell, Grace is on the front lines in a lot of different areas on campus. And I can tell you, she also knows how to text when something's not right. Isn't that right, Dr. Fraser? That's right. She lets us know. I love that she lets us know when things are going well and when we need to focus a little closer in some areas. So I really appreciate your counsel and your guidance there, Grace. Who'd like to go next? Gabby, you want to go? Go right ahead.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I had a very different experience. I'm actually a transfer student. I came from a private university. I ended up having some changes in my life that I decided to go from a Division II school to Division I school. That's actually quite hard. If anybody knows about those rules, I actually could not play my first full year here. Makes it kind of hard, and it also makes it mean I have to deal with my teammates in practice, and then also have to become friends with my teammates outside, because I can't really offer the team much other than a practice player. It was quite impressive to see that side of it. I hadn't really gotten to know my teammates at my other school at a level that I did here, because of being able to play. And that's a lot of competition, and it's a lot of pushing against each other than bringing each other together. My teammates are amazing, very inclusive. We, even as an athletics group, we back a lot of things of diversity and inclusion. Now there are one or two stragglers. If you guys are aware of some negative social media we have gotten from this, but unimportant. Athletics as a whole backs all diversity, all inclusion. We were part of Saluki Unity. One of my teammates and good friends was actually part of headwaying that. We did University Unity Walks, which is just us supporting each other, understanding that we are diverse people. Another thing I learned through sports as well as my own personal experience is that I got to see not only physical, inclusion and diversity, but I also got to see at a religious level. I got to see at a cultural level, which is some things you can't always see face to face. I can't tell if someone is Muslim, honestly. I don't. But having a teammate that is Muslim, actually having a roommate and a friend that is Muslim, opened my eyes to so much more. And that's something I don't think I would have been able to get just being a student without looking for it or without having to have that fall upon me. I also love and appreciate sports for showing me how to compete and respect and uplift another woman, especially coming from a woman's side, that I can be happy that I'm competing against someone who is a worthy competitor. I have more love for the game, which is something that I think a lot of women aren't taught. I also am taught something that some women don't understand, or I've seen in younger generations, that it's okay to be an athlete. A lot of women see, and I've seen it in my own cousins, that there are certain clothes, there are certain things you do that if you're a girl. I've had two cousins, I think, I want to say they're 11 and 7 now, but they're a lot younger. And I really hope this doesn't get to them that I forgot their birthdays and ages. I told them, hey, we're going to go in the backyard. Let's go put on basketball shorts. Me being a basketball player, that's nothing to me. I had tears welled up in both of their eyes, screaming, no, 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 no. I said, why? Basketball shorts are for boys. All my life, I have been a basketball player or some kind of athlete. That basketball shorts are basketball shorts. It's a sport. Men and women both play. But then I start looking around at, we don't have women in sports that are uplifted as much as men. Where I come to now, a university where the women's team is celebrated. Maybe not as much as I would like us to be, but we also have a community that is an SIU nation rather just an SIU men's basketball, football, baseball. I see people at Walmart be like, oh, you play for the women's team. On my old school, they'd be like, oh, you go to that school. And I'm like, oh no. But I love SIU for having a community that backs not only men and women's sports, but women's sports. I love a campus that you can go across that maybe if someone doesn't know there's a women's game, they'll find out about your women's game and then ask about the next women's game rather than brush it off or I hear only about the men's game. I love my coaches, my teammates in the athletics center for just opening my eyes to diversity and including and showing that like we all play at a certain level, but it's an equal level, men and women. We are not as much as I would think we would be, but we're not compared to our male sport as much as some might think, but there are some comparisons. I am appreciative. I love and appreciate my community that I found here just because it's opened my eyes to all these different experiences that I feel like a different walk or a different campus wouldn't, or even experience my old campus, I wouldn't have seen.
Great. Thank you for that, Gabby. Yeah, you're a round of applause. Tell you what, and I'm sure Coach Joseph would agree, it's tough being a student athlete and having to balance and juggle not only basketball, right, but also your studies and then your leadership roles. And, you know, Gabby probably didn't toot her own horn here, but she's not just like me going to school trying to get a degree in psychology. Okay, and I'm smiling under this mask. Gabby, give us all your major and what you're doing there.
I got I majored in biochemistry. I got a minor in psychology, and then I'm currently in the master's program, like I said, but I have the opportunity to go ahead and switch over to the PhD program for biochemistry. I work in a lab right now under Judith Davey and working in rhabdomyosin sarcoma. All that on top of being an active women's athlete.
That's amazing. Amazing work. Talked to her in the lobby. She mentioned all that and went right over my head. That's okay. Gabby, way to go. You know, there it is. Who's next? Any more students? Oh, yeah, there you are. Go right ahead. If we can get it to work for you.
Well, hello, I'm Chelsea again.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
This is my first panel ever, so I'm just a little bit nervous. But my overall experience at SIU, I guess I could start first with high school. I went to a predominantly white high school. I was one of 3 people of color. I had to overcome a lot of discrimination throughout 4 years. I was consistently told that I wouldn't amount to anything because I'm Hispanic. It's kind of a touchy subject.
Wow.
Um,
Take your time. Yeah, you're fine. Take your time.
I had to overcome consistent comments. Wow, I'm sorry.
You're okay. You're okay. Take your time. We're with you. That's tough. You know, it comes right out of you, and having to experience that over a number of years is even tougher. And I'll tell you, I didn't say this in the opening while you're taking a breath. Take your breath, take your time. But when I met with our Hispanic students, Christina, was that last spring? Right? You remember that? I went in and they talked about Christina not being an advisor or, you know, a professor or anything. They basically said, Esther, they said mother, and Christina, I know you didn't want that, okay? Okay? Because you don't look like anybody's mother. Okay. They said, look, I'm your sister, right? But I'll tell you, those students, you talk about counting on somebody here. Christina's always there for them, and you couldn't be in a better place, right? For someone to tell you what you can do, right? You feel a little better about that, about what you can do. So I'll let you go ahead and keep going.
Well, I had to endure that for 4 years straight. And I guess my senior year was like probably the hardest. And I'm not gonna lie, like Grace said, SIU was not my first choice. There were multiple other colleges that I wanted to apply to. There were multiple others that I did apply to. But 21 years ago, I was born in Carbondale, Illinois. My parents recommended, why don't you look at SIU? And I had already visited other campuses, other places I felt kind of comfortable at, but it just didn't feel like home. And I remember walking on campus here. I'm sorry, my voice is like cracking. I remember walking on campus here and it felt like a breath of fresh air. It was more welcoming. The environment was warm. There was just diversity. It was something that was also new because the town that I'm from isn't exactly very diverse. I think I was one of 2 Hispanic families throughout like 20 years. And it was just something that I really, really liked. It automatically got my attention. Other campuses that I went to were also predominantly white. And it was very unfortunate. But I remember my senior year, they kept telling me that I wasn't going to. This is another situation that I'll probably talk about later that I have had friends experience here at SIU, unfortunately, but I hope that does change. But the teachers and the faculty in my high school would often tell me that I should just change my goals, that my dreams were something far out of reach. And that's not exactly something that I was raised to believe. My parents often told me that rejection is just an opportunity to grow. It's an opportunity to keep pushing forward and to make something more of yourself. And it got to the point that high school, the entire experience as a whole, is something that a lot of times I think that I grew from it, and I know that I did. I've learned a lot. It still hurts because when you're that young, you shouldn't have to experience something like that. But coming to SIU was honestly a nice change of pace. I think that my freshman year, my freshman year, I made a promise to myself that I was going to branch out. I was going to allow myself to do things that I was told I wasn't capable of. And honestly, I'm really happy that I did it. I met some of my closest friends that way. I got the opportunity to meet Christina. And it's just overall been a lot nicer. I've met so many people within my department as a criminology major that are absolutely the best people I've ever met in my entire life. And regardless of my race, they treat me like a person. They encourage me. They believe in me. And I think it took me the longest time. But here at SIU, I've had the opportunity to kind of discover more about who I am and who I want to become. And I know that I'm capable. And I know that I'm going to be everything that I want to be, regardless of every doubt that people have thrown in my way. And like I said before, I think like any other institution, we have some issues. They can always be corrected. Light just has to be shed on those issues. But it's all overall, it's been a really big breath of fresh air. And I think it was just a change that I needed in my life. It's not super far away from home, but it's far away enough that I've been able to grow as a person. I've been able to learn newer experiences. I've been able to encounter newer and more open-minded people. And I can't be more thankful for that.
Amazing. Great stuff. Great comment. At Envisioning Inclusivity, I think we take for granted not only students coming to campus and trying to navigate through everything that's going on here, but as you heard, they've had to do that for 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? So you just don't show up to campus and everything is right where it ought to be. It takes time. So really appreciate you for sharing that story, very powerful story with us. I'll start off with our panelist, Christina, and I bragged on Christina a little bit a moment ago, but Christina, I know that you see a lot of what we don't see. When I say we, I'm talking about myself, maybe Dr. Frazier, some of our faculty members, because you get to hear a lot of those stories, right? You get to hear about the journeys and where students are trying to go. And I know you're a tremendous resource in the Hispanic and Latin Resource Center. Could you share with us what issues that you have seen personally arise and how all of the members of our campus, really what we could do to better serve or assist students? And I want you to be honest. I don't want you to hold back and don't, just because I'm standing behind you, okay, you're not going to hurt my feelings, right? So she's got a list. You see that? Okay, she got a list. So Christina, really, I want you to speak freely because that's the only way we're going to get better. So you have the microphone, and thank you again for being here.
Well, thank you again, and thanks for the cheers. I appreciate it. But yes, I wrote something. I wrote things that I've seen, not necessarily a rise, but that have been consistent since I've been working here at SIU as a first scholars coordinator and then as the Hispanic Latino Resource Center coordinator. So first, thanks for this invitation for the panel and including me in this conversation and allowing me to be an advocate once again and a voice for my Hispanic Latino students, including our DACA and undocumented students. And also I am an advocate of our staff, especially our young professionals. And if I may, I will be speaking briefly about that as well. So for students, the most important issue our students face is financial. The majority of our student population is first generation low income students. Their financial gaps are in the thousands of dollars. Many of our students cannot get a Parent Plus loan, take a loan simply because parents do not have good credit or credit at all, or they do not want to get in debt, and which is a cultural thing. And many of our students' parents are also undocumented, which is another uncertainty and another layer in itself. So there is a lack of understanding of the financial struggles our students go through. Housing fees are extremely high, and that is not paid by the Saluki commitment. And the Saluki commitment is conditioned once all loans are accepted, then Saluki commitment pays the gap of tuition and fees. So I have a student that had zero family contribution, had a 2.5 GPA, and did not qualify for the Saluki commitment because the minimum GPA is at 2.75. So therefore, this student, after all his financial package and everything, he still had a $4,200 per semester gap. So he could not attend SIU. Many of our students with come with great GPAs and are able to acquire scholarships. And Chelsea, one of them, extremely smart, intelligent Latina. And so for those scholarships, also our undocumented students and our DACA students qualify. And our DACA and undocumented students, the majority of them have the expectation of the perfect citizen. And so therefore they do really well academically on top of every uncertainty and every mental health issue that encompasses their situation. So, and many of our students, of our Hispanic students, are deemed unprepared for college, but not for lack of intellectual capacity, right? But because of the lack of access of resources, in other words, the systemic inequities. So when they come to SIU, we fall short on, and we do not provide sustainable resources for them to persist, retain them, and complete their degree. Many drop out with financial debt. And the word access in our mission statement is simply access to failure. Then our undocumented students have yet to have a specific step-by-step process to register. They have a lot of things on the website about DACA students, but not in a specific step-by-step process. And we have no qualified person in admissions on campus to help them and walk them through the process. Many times I end up being some of the person that will reach out to them. And also as a Latina, they come to the center for any and everything support. So therefore, there are several things happening here, right? The lack of representation, because we have nobody that can understand this process, but it's also the lack of representation overall for our Latino students. And then the lack of procedural in admissions for this population of DACA and undocumented. And on top of that, the lack of sense of belonging, and not just for our DACA students, but for all our Hispanic Latinx students. I have a new transfer student, and she came to my office and we were talking about imposter syndrome. And this is an extremely intelligent Latina transfer student. And I'm trying to illustrate how we can move away from that. That is basically a phrase imposed in a spaces where we do feel that we do not belong. So, but when she verbalized the thought of her imposter syndrome was extremely stunning to me and overwhelming at the same time. Because what she said was, what if they find out that I am undocumented? So on top of that, right, on top of the sense of belonging, the uncertainty and the even fear of even more rejection for these students, which are extremely bright, and I'm inspired by them, because if they're doing everything they've done so far to get here, despite everything, and the rhetoric and the immigration and politicized aspect of their livelihoods here, they're still making it and making good grades. It's admirable. So I'm extremely proud of them and inspired by them. So on another note, the cultural capital and social capital that we say our Hispanic students lack is not about them, but the expectation for our students to fit in a standardized environment not designed for them. So as educators in this institution, if we have no understanding of such issues, then we have lack of understanding of the social issues and struggles Hispanic students face. Or maybe we do not want to acknowledge those barriers. So to answer the question, how can all members of our campus can assist me in serving these students, I would say to faculty, when I advocate for my students and I send an email for your consideration, I'm not trying to lecture you. I am illustrating what you don't see that I see, and I'm trying to bridge the gap of understanding. To other colleagues and units, I am very happy and privileged that I have been helped and supported. And so to the staff that supported me, thanks for because it has made a big difference and an impact in my service to students. When you do and when we do our job with love and professionalism, our students benefit. And my students have benefited as a result of having that support. So we show them that they matter, and that is a great thing. And when we show that they matter, it's in fact, research shows that it is a indication of retention, mattering, simply acknowledging the importance of our students. And I always say, without students, none of us would be here. So, so I always talk about best practices as well. And changing our attitude does not increase our budget. So as a best practice to see, I would ask everybody in this audience and those looking, watching this remote, to see my Hispanic students with enthusiasm, because they are here getting an education. And it has not been easy for them to get here, yet they are here despite the challenges. So basically, I request your support and understanding, and to the institution, financial opportunities, even for those students with not pristine GPAs. So because it is not about the right student, but about the right service. And so with regards to staff, we are about 86 Hispanic employees in this institution of about 2,000 employees. So just let that sink in. About 86, and some of them are remote. So we have recently lost 2 amazing faculty and 2 amazing staff that I know of. And so there is a lack of value of the contributions and talents they have. And so there is no professional career ladder for staff, especially in admissions. And they have proved over and over and over their capacity to do a great job. So not just our students leave, but also our staff. And so for lack of value and lack of sense of belonging, and that's one of the things that I think we can really work on, humanizing each other, on humanizing and valuing the efforts that our students, our minoritized students, come to this institution, and the great opportunity that we have to build a better future simply by acknowledging them, observing, valuing them, and really cultivating humans that are going to be, especially speaking good about this university, and also are going to be doing amazing things. So we have to do better in how we see our students and how we humanize our Hispanic Latinx students, because all the rhetoric, all the labels, all the deficit perspectives, all the immigration perspectives, 4 out of 5 Hispanic Latinx students are US citizens. And they're still always question their status in this country. So if us as educators educate ourselves a little bit more and change the mindset and understand and acknowledge their contributions of their parents, even as undocumented, then we could be really valuing the infrastructure, the potential that they bring to this country, and the part of the infrastructure of this country. So that's my plea. That's my plea to all listening, to all students, faculty, staff, administrators. I think we have to do better than how we are doing right now. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Good job. Christina, in summarizing that, half the battle sometimes is not being defensive, right? And just listening and acknowledging that, yeah, we got a problem. And that's okay, right? It doesn't mean that, somebody's bad. It doesn't mean that, trying to cover up. We just acknowledge we have a problem and we have to agree to work together in getting there. And it's not going to happen overnight. I always tell people sometimes you may feel like you're sprinting, but it's really a marathon because some of these issues run very deep, right? They run very deep. An example, the Chancellor Task Force, the Diversity Task Force, identified several areas that really focused on systemic racism within the institution based on policies and procedures. And a lot of work in there, right, that we have to kind of sift through. And we can't get defensive about it. It's okay to say, you know what, you're right. We're doing a horrible job in that area. How can we make it better, right? How can we try and fix it? Okay, that's really the idea. I know that we have, is it Jose here? And Jose, I know that as you heard Christina mention, students having to deal with some of these things. What advice do you have, right, in the midst of things that aren't working right, or things that are being worked on over time, hopefully with different groups on campus? What do you, I know you see a lot of tough situations, but what advice would you have to give some of our students on the panel and others that are listening? What are some of the resources they can take advantage of to try and cope with some of this that they're working through?
Well, definitely they can come to us at Counseling and Psychological Services. And we also have a network list of referrals for anyone based out in the community. But to answer a bit of that question, I did want to just read a couple of statistics, if that's okay. Sure. So since the pandemic, we found that nearly half of Latino and Black survey respondents reported experiencing economic challenges because of the pandemic, substantially 21% more than white. And 39% of women reported significant mental health concerns related to COVID-19, which is 13% higher than men. And for people with low income, the rate of mental health concerns was 20 points higher than for people with high income. And we also do know that with the LGBTQ population, they are 3.5 times more likely to attempt suicide before the age of 20. And they are 40% more likely to consider it. All of these things have been exacerbated by the pandemic. So since my beginnings in mental health and counseling and becoming a psychologist, and just a little my background, I am biracial, both Latino and Asian, and I come from a first generation low SES, and here I am becoming a doctor. So I hope that provides some inspiration for all of you that you all can do this as well. But what that tells me is that, are we talking about mental illness that is intrinsic to us, or are we talking about socioeconomic concerns? And I think that was perhaps the most difficult thing for us at CAPS to deal with during the pandemic. When someone lost a job, when someone lost a loved one, when they couldn't eat, and then we would get the referrals and then try to help them. We can help people with skills. We can help people with resources. And we're one of them, and we will network to do what we can. But really, we want to work to not only just be a multicultural competent organization, but a multicultural, anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-heterosexist, and so on organization. And I think that's where discussions like this, that's where the mission is leading towards with SIU. So in terms of resources, contact us. We'll help you find it. There's many out there. And fortunately, I will say this, because CAPS, we were one of the few, well, many universities did this, but we really jumped on the ball fast when it comes to transitioning to telehealth. And now we're both in person in telehealth, and we meet the students where they are at. But there are also, one of the good things about the pandemic is it opened up access of mental health care across many groups, whether it's for substance use, whether it's for women survivors, even across virtual groups as well. So we have all those resources, those where you can turn to. And fortunately, we have offices and a campus that are both embedded in the Multicultural Resource Center that is embedded within the SHS Student Health Services Clinic, and slowly we'll be transitioning into athletics as well. So we really want to make sure that we're meeting all of our students and that we're everywhere so that there's not a stigma when it comes to seeking help. Because a lot of times we might not even be talking about something that is intrapersonal or developmental. And if we do, we work with that. But sometimes we're also just talking about something that's embedded within the social political framework. And that's one thing that I would not want, or any of us within our training program, but we want you to internalize and feel self-doubt or imposter syndrome with that.
Great job. Great job. It was, we probably one of the best, if not the best CAPS program among any of colleges and universities. And what I worry about is sometimes we're afraid to ask for help. I can't tell you how many students that the resource is there, the expertise is there. There's a stigma sometimes, even among African Americans, folks in my family, that just don't always see that there can be help available. And so for those listening, that's critically important as we're trying to deal with some of these issues. Again, this is not just show up at college. This is years of things that some of us are working through. And it's really important that you get help along the way. I know we've spent a lot of time on the panel talking about Hispanic, Latinx, or African American students, but Ramesh, I really want you to talk to us a little bit about international students. And I know that you serve as president of the International Student Council and currently as the coordinator for our study abroad program. But how might you suggest we as a campus help to bridge relationships between our domestic and international students?
Thank you. And I just want to say, when everybody was speaking about diversity and racial and all those things, I can connect myself to in there because I'm Asian. I'm from Nepal. I came to US as an international student, and I did my undergrad and grad in Nebraska, and I did my PhD at SIU. So I can connect, and I know how it feels to be from a different group. But you should never discourage yourself that you are different, because you can do it. If you can aim something, you can do it. But talking about my life, I would just say I came here to SIU in 2015. I was trying to graduate early in 3.5 years with my PhD, but I couldn't. But 4 years, it took me 4 years to graduate. And during that time period as an international student, I got involved with different organizations that kept me busy. And I get connected with a lot of resources when I got involved with organization. For students, as I want to give them advice, if you need a resources or if you need a help, there are a lot of resources around the campus. You just need to find it out. If you do not know how to find it out, you can just go to any departments. For me as an international student, I went to the international office and find out those kind of resources. The first resources I found out was about the International Student Council, the organization that existed on campus. So I got involved with that. Through that way, I got to know about a lot of other resources, like a scholarship-wise, or in meeting new peoples. How can I get connected with the other American peoples, domestic people over here? How I can share my culture. So how I can learn about the different culture. So those kind of things that can be done. I just want to say, it is international students, or it's from a Hispanic or Latino or an African American or any other group of people. It's everybody's same. We just need to respect each other and stay together. It's all called unity. But regarding study abroad, right now I'm a coordinator for the study abroad programs, and I have seen a lot of students who are interested for the study abroad, because this is a wonderful experience and it is resources for you all. Not only for the student, it's all for the staff member, faculty members. If you are interested leading a program for a study abroad program, you can do that too. It's possible. And through that way, you can learn about different culture, learn about different people, different country. It is one of the best experience you can ever get. and international office does a lot of events throughout the year. And one of the best way to remove the gap between the domestic students and international students, getting like organizing different kind of events, what CIE has been organizing right now. Like one of the best one, I would say, is international coffee hours. I know Elaine is over here, who coordinates the coffee hours. And every time we had more than 100+ students from all around the world, and also like all around the nation. All the SIU students get together, they learn about the different cultures. It's a win-win situation on the both side. There's nothing to lose. You are learning about different culture. If you come to coffee hour, if you find a person from Japan, you make a friend with them. It's like once in your lifetime. If you go to Japan, you have somebody there that it's something, you're learning something different culture over there too. You're learning about different languages. And there is a conversation partner, those kind of resources you can utilize. If you want to be a friend with, or if you want to teach somebody, or if you want to learn about the language of some other country, you can get involved with conversation partner. And we do have an English language program or the Spanish language program where you can go for a study abroad and learn about different languages to language programs. So those are the things that you can consider when you are here when you are a student here at SIU. It is a resources for you. Definitely utilize those resources, because when I was a student, I did utilize those resources. And when talking about the other events, being as an international student, there is International Food and Cultural Festival, one of the huge international festival at SIU. It usually occurs in February, but like due to the COVID, it didn't happen. But it didn't happen in person, but there was a virtual International Food and Culture Festival in March, but it usually happened on February, though. It's coming up soon too. Get involved with those things. You can learn about different cultures through that way. And being as an international student at SIU during my school, as a student life, I felt really safe over here. I have been to different campuses before, different colleges throughout my life, but SIU is kind of safe campus, and I feel really welcomed over here. I would say, nobody is perfect. None of the department is perfect. There is a space for improvement, but what I can say personally is SIU is a safe campus for international students, and they can enjoy their time over here. There might be something that can be a little bit improved, which can be done easily, but I would definitely encourage all the international students, and also the domestic students here at SIU, just get involved, learn about different things, learn about different cultures, help each other, live in unity. That's what diversity means. I feel that way. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. You said a lot and really gave some good advice. I kept focusing on when you used the word respect, right? Respect. You talked about learning and understanding differences, but still being respectful. I think sometimes we lose some of that when we have disagreements, but we can be respectful. We can be collegial. We can agree to disagree, right? But we do it with class and respect. For one of the first times in a long time, if you look at our enrollment, we're starting to see, we're one of the few universities where we have more male than female. That just changed. Okay. We actually are almost about 50-50, if not a slight percentage more female. That's changed. I wonder why we were not like most universities. And Bethany, boy, did you show up at the right time, right? Because I know in our Women's Center, you're going to be able to work a lot with our not only our students, but also our faculty and our staff. And Christina mentioned no opportunities for advancement, right? When we start thinking about development, right? Positions, cross-training, opportunities for advancement. I know Bethany was a product, again, she was actually in my class, in my class in higher ed that I taught in the spring. And I knew she had aspirations to move within the institution, and look at you now. So I appreciate you taking on this role. What advice or what resources are you thinking about? Because you've been able to see this right from the inside out. You've been inside. So now that you're in the seat, right? Now that you have the keys to the car, what can we expect? You know, what are some of the things that you're thinking about that we really need to do that we've not done?
So, sorry, y'all.
It
That was a bit
works.
loud. The first thing is creating what that vision should look like. I'm only one person, and I know that there's a whole bunch of other people with a lot of good ideas. And so part of that is going out and soliciting feedback from internal and external stakeholders and seeing, okay, what have you all been wanting? What are the issues that you've recognized, encountered? What have you heard, good and bad? What are good things that you saw at another institution or in a community's women's center that you would like to see here on this campus from students, staff, faculty, and the community? Gathering all of that and then turning that into mixing that with how do we some of these things we know. We know that we need to better prepare our students for career readiness. We know that we want that students are coming into the institution and they want to get their degrees, but they also want to get a job afterwards. So if we know that when women graduate, we're going to not inherently make less, how do we prepare them to be able to combat some of those issues? So you'll see things that are more leading towards career readiness programs, and you'll see that coming from the Women's Resource Center to try to bridge those gaps on a student level. And then we'll also take a step forward and say, okay, what are we doing with staff? As you heard, Dr. Lane said, I am a recent graduate from SIU, and one of the things that I was super involved. So I had a lot of connections and a lot of great folks to help me out to get to where I am. And even being that involved, there are still areas that I felt lost. Well, who do I choose for a reference? How does that happen? What does that look like? And even moving into the staff position, I'm sure whenever it's time to move on to the next, there'll still be those questions. Those things don't go away if there's no one in place to tell you those things. And so also developing mentoring programs for our staff and our faculty to be able to move up through whatever structures are in their area, to have that support, whether that's coming from internally or externally, because unfortunately, we do not have an extensive amount of women in leadership on campus. And so what does that look like and what do we need? What are the gaps? What are those folks who are ready to step into that next level? What do they need to be able to confidently move in that direction? And so what I'm really focusing on the first is filling the holes that the students in the community feel here. And as we're doing that, we're also going to be expanding on what folks' understanding of what womanhood looks like. Traditionally, in a lot of women's centers, they're centered around a white woman's experience. And so expanding that from race, but also looking at socioeconomic statuses and breaking down stereotypes that are within just the community of women. It is not Black women who use government assistance the most. And so having programs to explain the differences of what womanhood could look like. And so you'll see a Women's of the World roundtable because we have a great amount of women from all over the country and the world here. And so let's hear what they have to say. Let's hear about their experiences. That can be an example of a way to network. You can get some of that readiness as well. And so you'll see also a lot of crossing of our goals into what our programs will look like. And then also just expanding what our knowledge is and offering more gender equity trainings, and that would be for the SIU and the community, seeing what that bias and implicit, that implicit and the implicit bias and the microaggressions, and how does that play out in what a woman is wearing when she comes to an interview? What is her hair like? How is it styled? What all those things can impact not only what offer she gets, but if she gets that offer. And so looking at all of the holistic experience of a woman and all of the different forms that women come, and trying to get them to whatever the next step they want and support them through their journey to get there.
So thank you for that, Stephanie. I know you're going to do a great job in your role there. You heard some of this from Christina earlier, And as I introduce Rob, you'll find that a lot of things that were mentioned, for some reason, right, we've not focused on. Okay, this is the first time, I think, in the history of the university, Rob, that it wasn't me doing it. It was Rob and others, Christina and others, who said, why don't we have a Hispanic faculty staff? Why is that group not a constituency group? Not just a group meeting and, you know, having lunch and talking, but a recognized group with a voice. And really, for Rob's work and other Hispanic faculty and staff, we're able to constitute that group. And so hats off, congratulations for that, Rob, and the work that you've done. If you heard some statistics, and then you heard comments about when we have very few Hispanic faculty and staff here, those that are here sometimes don't always feel appreciated. They don't always feel connected. And we wonder why they leave, right? We wonder why they go on to other places, and we end up reading about them, right? Going, wow, look at them now. We could have kept them here. That would have been great. So Rob, why don't you talk to us a little bit about things that we can do to improve on, to make those experiences for Hispanic faculty and staff. We're talking about envisioning inclusivity. What can we do then so we don't lose that workforce and that we can attract more Hispanic, Latino, Latinx faculty, staff, or students?
Yeah, that's an easy question. So first of all, I would like to say thank you to Chancellor Lane for helping the Hispanic Latino Staff Faculty Council become a constituency group. Like we founded in 2015. We couldn't even meet with the chancellors before, and Chancellor Lane came on board, met with us immediately. I think I even gave him grief the very first meeting he was in with the task force, because I had it up to here already with everything that we've been putting up with. And he was gracious and answered the question and brought it to discussion for the task force and helped us with constituency status. So that's been fantastic. As far as how we can help faculty, staff on campus going forward, I think it's really a matter of, like Christina mentioned earlier, about value, of course, and what Chelsea mentioned was about this welcoming sense of welcome, no matter what your race and identity is, right? I think for students, especially coming to campus, it's not so much about, in my opinion, about having someone look like them, it's about being welcomed where they're at, right? So we want to have faculty and staff that are welcoming to our students who identify in different ways, both racial and gender, in all multitude of ways. Is that welcoming sense is equally as important as someone looking like them. The same thing goes for the faculty and staff, right? We have so few Latino, Hispanic faculty and staff on campus that we're challenged as well to find a welcoming community, to make sure we're identified and welcomed as a researcher, as an educated AP person, as an experienced staff person, right? It's equally important that we're recognized and accepted and valued for what we have to offer. And the stories that we regularly hear, that's not always the case, right? So of course, like other people have mentioned, there's always room for opportunity, there's room for improvement. And where I feel the best opportunity for campus is, on the faculty side first, is that when it comes to hiring practices, you know, we're still kind of doing what we've always been doing for a long time. And it's not easy to just hire someone because they're African-American or hire somebody because they're Latino, Hispanic, right? It becomes, what's the research topic? What's the discipline they're being hired in? Who are they competing with? All that kind of thing. What I have found, though, that's happening across the country that we can buy into is actually allowing the faculty and administrators, when they apply, to be able to answer what they know about diversity in their own experience. So in their discipline, like in the sciences, the diversity is different than in the fine arts or in design or in the social sciences. So any hire might be able to be asked what they know about diversity and inclusivity in their own discipline, because it's different, what they've actually done in that area, and then ideas of improvement that they have for that discipline and even for the university, but then make it something that we can evaluate as well as the search committee. That way it becomes something that we can actually evaluate as the hiring process, not just we're parsing through their resume and CV to see if they've done some stuff on a task force, or that maybe they've volunteered somewhere in the community. And we feel that the same kind of method can be happened for the staff and faculty. So for the staff. So if we have people coming onto campus that we're hiring, no matter how they identify, if they have the value of diversity, they know how it affects their discipline and their life, and they know they have ideas for it, they become a welcoming person, and that's what the students want, right? So there's always this balance of getting faculty here and staff here that are supportive of the system and getting students here that identify with everybody, but it's about welcoming. And if we have more people on campus that can participate in that way of thinking, that's going to be better in the long run. So that's the first thing that I see. What was the second thing? I think I forgot what the second thing was, but I think the first thing about the hiring, I think, is the most important aspect here. Oh, the second part was, as faculty and staff, we're also burdened with being on search committees. You name the search committee, I've been on it as a Lopez, right? Willingly in most cases, but sometimes I was the one option that was available. That becomes a burden when you're trying to make tenure, right? It's not the only reason, but it's certainly a little bit of a burden. Culturally as well, with our students, there's a little bit of a different connection too. Like we've had that same experience going through school about the familial ties and not going into debt. It's a little bit of a different demand and expectation. So we identify with our students. So in addition to being asked to be on many search committees, we're asked to identify and work with our students in a different way too. That's a little bit more demanding, right? So what we've been trying to do, what our council has been talking about lately, is making sure that the faculty at least and the staff aren't the ones burdened with also doing the recruiting too, right? Because we want more Latino Hispanic students here doesn't mean us as the faculty should be doing the recruiting. Not directly, of course, indirectly. So what we can do is provide to the admissions office, to Dr. Fraser here and Dr. Lane, here's ideas we have, and here's what's different about recruiting our Latino Hispanic students, among many students. Here's what we think you should do, here's our advice, and then allow those people with the expertise to actually do the recruiting, right? Not just us. Instead, we're burdened already with being on the search committees, and now I'm burdened to have to go to Chicago and go to St. Louis and go to Nashville and do all the recruiting as well, which is a problem too. So trying to encourage the admissions office and the other folks on campus to take our ideas as motivation to help recruit, as we know, one of the largest minority in the country, Latino Hispanic students. That helps everybody. They want to study everything. It's not about one thing. They want to study everything, but try not to burden us with continuing to do the work. So for me, that's one way that the administration can help. And I've seen, I can't stress this enough with Chancellor Lane and Dr. Fraser, just the fact that Diversity Week is not just about racial identity. It's much more broad than that. I've been thankful to be part of the planning committee and with Diana to help make that so, and it's been supported, right? I think that's big growth opportunity. The fact that we're a constituency group, it's sad that it took this long, but that we're it is also a positive sign that this administration is actually making change and enforcing change. So I think the next thing in line is what I'm talking about now, is where the faculty and staff are supported and not having to do all those tasks all the time, and that we have the offices on campus using our advice to actually make that happen. And I think that goes a long way with the third part, is making sure our faculty and staff are valued for that. Like sometimes for the research faculty at other universities, the service as a minority on search committees counts towards tenure, even at high research universities, right? Because of the burden, because of the time that it takes, and especially if you're the only underrepresented person in that department, you're going to be doing a lot of extra service. So those little baby steps that actually value what we do and how it can pertain to raises or promotions or tenure, I think are a next step that I think we're on the verge of taking. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, great stuff. Thank you for that. You know what's interesting? What I find is, and no offense to cabinet members if you hear, Dr. Fraser and others, but what I find and what I found in the year of doing my listening and learning tour is that folks like Rob and Christina, they kind of been through it, right? They know. You don't even really have to do it yourself, because they can tell you what's working. They can tell you what's not working. They've been here long enough to know. So sometimes the best advice I get sometimes is talking to my constituency leads, because sometimes my cabinet won't share it with me. They'll say everything's great. There's no problem over there. We don't know what they're talking about. So it's so important with these constituency councils, as we stand them up, that we have those discussions so that I can go back to cabinet and say, uh-oh, that's not the way it is. They're telling me something else. So let me in on the secret here. On that tour, we came up with 5 top priorities: student success and engagement, academic research innovation, diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of the pillars. So now's the time to take advantage of a lot of what we heard. No excuses, right? We can't say this night didn't happen. We can't say these words were never spoken. We've got to hold ourselves accountable to seeing some real change, not just a bunch of this. That's the idea in those pillars and in our Imagine SIUC in 2030. We're going to imagine a place we want to be in with diversity and inclusion. We got to get to work, right? 2030 will be here tomorrow. So we've got some work to do. Our 4th area, sustainability. And then 5 is branding, marketing, partnerships. Those are our top 5 pillars for the university. And as we hire Dr. Frazier, here is our Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I'm counting on him and holding him accountable to make sure we don't get off track. And I tell you what, he's got to ask some tough questions, not just for African Americans, not just for Hispanic Latinx, not just for international, not just LGBTQ. He's got to ask some tough questions about where we are today and get your honest feedback, and then start putting some plans in motion, right? Because he knows me. I'm going to be sending him stuff saying, where are we? Come on. I heard it. Did you hear it? Come on. What are we going to do? He's going to be upset with riding with me to the game, right? Because I'm going to be wearing him out about, hey, did you hear what they said last night? Did you hear what Dr. Lopez said? Hey, you hear what Christina said? That's how I operate. So we hired him because he can do that. And so I want him to really give our final words about some of the things that he's been able to see. Paul, what has it been, a month?
Little over a month.
A little over a month. So he's still pretty fresh. He's still in listening mode and observation mode. And so I want to hear a little bit about maybe, Paul, your last 30 days and what you've observed, and maybe some thoughts about how we go forward from here tonight.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. First of all, I appreciate being here tonight. And as we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, my first 30 days have been great. I mean, we've had just a couple of hiccups, but I mean, one of the reasons I came was how diverse this institution is. But that diversity that isn't necessarily seen because I sit next to different cultures. It's how we treat people, right? And so we talk a lot about retention and recruiting, but really it's that relationships. And so this where me and Rob may disagree, that it's all of us that have to build those relationships. And maybe not being on every committee, but it's all of us that take just being nice to people. I think we've gotten so far away from treating each other as just human beings and acknowledging their work, right? Acknowledging what you bring to the table. And I think that's one thing I've heard even today, several calls today, the same conversation about how we treat people, how we acknowledge them. And I understand that, money and titles mean things, but acknowledging their work goes a long way. And so I think that's some of the first things that we're going to need to do is acknowledging their work and changing some of the things that we do in our hiring practices. We're looking at that now. I tell you one other thing that I'm thinking about right now is that this chair is not very diverse or inclusive. My God. All right. You see me readjusting? Man. But I want each of you to know that out of my office, and that door is always open. And I'm not just going to listen. I'm gonna follow up with you on how we can change it. I might not be able to change it right then, but I think we have some things in place in the chancellor's leadership and his vision that we're going to get there eventually. But it's not going to happen overnight. And it's some things that we can get right now. And it's going to be a big win. I'm super competitive. And so I think, we can win for students, we can win for staff, we can win for faculty, right? And I think we can win in the community as well. Because in talking to the mayor, he understands that as SIU goes, the city goes, and vice versa. But the value we have with each other, right? Like this right here is very rich. And not every institution has that. I've been at different institutions. Not every institution has that. So I think we need to use that to our advantage. But we also need to look at and make sure that our practices are equitable, that we are inclusive in nature, and then we celebrate our diversity. And not just with tacos on Cinco de Mayo or soul food for Black History Month, right? It needs to be some educational things that go along with that culture. Because there's some historical points about that we need to understand, because some of the biases and microaggressions come about because we just don't understand. And conversations we probably should have, we're not comfortable having. So I think this is a great opportunity for us, though, to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? So I may not like some of the conversations, but I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable, because I think we need to know we don't get better unless we do that.
Thank you for that. Paul, we appreciate that. You know, oh, what happened? You okay? Are you uncomfortable in your chair? Try standing up, Paul, for, okay. Yeah, sure, you're right ahead. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Chelsea is gonna make a comment.
Relating to Dr. Lopez's point with like the Hispanic community on campus and what the administration could do better. Sorry, I wasn't having this close enough to my mouth. I noticed that with my like new student orientation and everything, that they don't have booths that are set up specifically in Spanish. And a lot of family members do accompany their kid, or well, you know, the adult that's now starting their college career, and they don't completely understand everything. They want to be there, they want to be supportive every step of the way, but they can't understand every little detail. And I think that it would be nice for the university to have something set up in Spanish. I mean, a lot of Hispanic students, I mean, I know so many of them that want to get a college education, but they don't have that kind of support, let alone if their parents don't completely understand what's going on. And I think that'd be very beneficial on the school's part to do something that could be more inclusive with the Spanish language. It is also becoming more common for people to speak Spanish. So I feel like that's just all around a better idea. And I could go off of that by saying that oftentimes I have a bigger friend group here that's more Hispanic than I ever did before. And I can say from that we often feel ignored on campus. I love SIU with all my heart, but I think that they can do so many things so much better. We often feel small, we feel ignored, and I can give you guys like 2 examples. It has not happened to me personally. It's happened to my peers. They have vented to me in moments that they felt stressed and they weren't sure what else to do. When academic advisors or professors told them to their face that they should change their major or just completely go in a different direction because they weren't cut out for what they were moving toward. And it's very discouraging because you're doing the best that you can. And if people in that sort of position that are meant to guide you are telling you that you aren't meant to be doing what you want to do, it's kind of just disheartening. It takes away any motivation you might have had. And it's happened a lot to a lot of my Latino friends on campus. Another thing I could say is my freshman year here, I decided to audition for a speakers forum. My instructor, he pushed me, he encouraged me. He's like, go for it, just do it. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I prepared a speech. I actually did that same speech in class, and I thought it was pretty well written. And I got really positive feedback from all of my peers. I got good critiques from the instructor himself. Everybody was wishing me luck for the audition later that afternoon. And I went in that night to audition. And obviously, when you're auditioning for anything or getting interviewed for absolutely anything, you're going to be slightly nervous. I'm nervous sitting here right now. I feel like all of us are a little bit maybe nervous, just a little bit. And they asked me the question, are you feeling nervous? And I said, yeah, of course, a little bit, but I'm also very excited to be here. I didn't know in the moment that that alone was enough to completely remove me. And in their notes, they wrote, she said she was nervous, but she didn't appear to be. And later, a week or two later, whenever my instructor pulled me aside, he said, Chelsea, and he looked me in the eye. He said, you're already Latina. Don't give people another reason to push you aside. And just by saying that I was nervous, I was removed, even though my speech was literally fine. I presented everything well. The only thing that cut me out was the fact that I had slightly given that comment. And it was just hard, I guess, to say as being Latina. I feel like sometimes a belief that's instilled in us growing up is that we have to keep fighting, we have to fight harder, we have to prove ourselves consistently, and it's exhausting. Because we know that we're worthy, we know that we can accomplish anything that we set our mind to, just like anybody else. And I'm going to say this right now for everybody in the room, everybody that's watching, we are resilient beings. Everybody here, right here, sitting here, every one of you, we're resilient beings. We're constantly overcoming obstacles and moving forward to a better tomorrow. And I think that at the end of the day, we all want a better goal. We all want to accomplish the dreams that we've had as a child. I feel like we're all very optimistic growing up. And I feel like as we get older, and I've seen this so often in my friends, that light in us kind of dims because of the encounters that we've had. And it makes me sad. I don't want to continue to allow other people's opinions or ideas to define me, because that's not who I am. And I guess from there, I can say as well that another point that I also talk about, and I want to say this specifically to the Hispanic community, es el que no pregunta, no prospera. And I'm going to translate. He who does not ask questions does not prosper. The Hispanic community has a very big problem of being scared to ask questions. A lot of them have consistently been rejected for such a long period of time that they feel that they're no longer worthy of the things that they want to attain. And it's really sad, but the fact is, if you want to get anywhere, if you want to prosper as an individual, if you want to get further along in your future, to open more doors, more opportunities, you have to ask questions. And we as a Hispanic community can do better. We have to be more supportive of each other, more supportive along the way. I mean, honestly, and I talk about this all the time with Christina, I have conversations with my family about this. I've observed it since I was a child. There are families that raise their kids and they're envious of the opportunities that their children have. Why? Why is that even okay? And I want to say, like, the support that you see within the Black community or among Caucasian individuals, it's so admirable because it's not as common in the Hispanic community. But I've seen more of that, more of the unity and the coexistence here on campus, but it's still not as common as it should be or as much as I would like it to be. And I know that SIU can do better. I know Cristina and Dr. Lopez are working all the time to do the best that they can to bring the Hispanic community back together, to make them thrive. But I feel like we also need outside support in order for that to happen. But at the end of the day, I think SIU is making better strides to a better future for the Hispanic community as well as all other minority groups. And honestly, I'm very happy that all of you guys were able to make it here today. I'm glad I was invited and asked to be here. It's honestly such a great honor. I'm here not only for myself, but for other Latinos who have been doubted and belittled. I'm here for other minorities who have also had their own struggles, because at the end of the day, we all know that we can make it.
Wow, that's how you end it there, Chelsea. Well said. So glad you jumped on there. And Chelsea and Grace and Gabby, thank you so much. I just want to end, and we'll have questions from the audience here in just a moment, but just a quick story. Thank goodness that Sherry and Vivian didn't know this when I was interviewing with them for my job, but I was supposed to be a welder or a machinist. So when I came out of high school, my counselors didn't talk to me about college at all. My SAT, ACT score was terrible, Grace. Okay, clearly those tests were not predictors of success for me. I tell students that all the time. I was so impressed, Sherry, when I found out SIUC had gone away from the SAT and the ACT and focused not on 4.5, 5 hours of a test, but 4 years of going to high school for your academic GPA. So I was so happy that that happened. But because of those experiences, I've had this chip on my shoulder that I can't get off my shoulder. It is a heavy chip. And I use it, Chelsea, when anytime I think somebody thinks I can't do something. It makes me even stronger. I get even more motivated to prove everybody wrong. I see it as a competition, Dr. Frazier. Let's go. I'm going to outwork you. I'm going to outstudy you. I'm going to outread you. Right? Right, Gabby? I'm going to do all those things. I'm going to know when I don't know something and not try and know it all. Right? I'm going to rely on you to help me. And I hear that in each one of your stories today as we talk about this envisioning inclusivity, right? And then how we make it through, right? How this journey goes. And I don't want to be a downer here, but you're going to have to do that for a long time, right? Whether you like it or not, you're going to constantly be judged. You're going to constantly be criticized, but that doesn't mean you give up, go home. Or Jose, right? It doesn't mean that you can't find some coping mechanisms to help you out along the way, right? So hopefully you get encouraged by that. Let's give our panelists a round of applause for doing such a great job. Thank you guys so much for being honest. I think we have an opportunity for some questions from the audience. So let's just, if you can stand, tell us who you are. And I know maybe we can bring them. What do you think, Diana, with the microphone? Okay, thank you. Oh, I'll sit right here. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm not going to complain like Dr. Frazier here about, how hard the chairs are. Cherry, get him out of here, please. Come on. Yeah, go sit. There you go, Dr. Lopez. Go sit over here on the couch. There you go.
Technically, chairs are an accommodation.
There you go. That chair can't be that bad.
Seriously, chairs are accommodations.
Oh, oh, there you go. Let's see what you. Sorry, go right on with your question.
Chelsea, you were told that you didn't answer that initial question correctly. I don't think there was a correct answer to that question. I suspect if you had said, no, I'm not nervous, they would have said, well, we can't relate to you. Or are you being honest? I think they would have found some reason. And it hurts me that you were held accountable for an arbitrary and unfair metric that doesn't even make sense to anyone. That wasn't your fault. And I don't think there was a right answer.
Wow. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Anybody else have any questions?
Other comments? So yeah, we've got one here. Yeah.
Because it's just easy handoff, that's why.
There you go.
Hey, my name is Jason Isley. I'm a freshman here at Southern. And Chelsea, or your thing stood out to me the most because, like, I too come from a predominantly white community. And, like, I've heard many people I once called my friends use the N-word during conversations. And oftentimes I'd be challenging my own community in order to do the right thing. Whether that's public speaking on stage or participating in conversation sessions or protesting in my hometown. Yeah, and oftentimes I felt as if I was doing it alone, especially since I've oftentimes been doing solo parts in making people aware of social responsibilities. Yeah, I come from a predominantly white community that doesn't take like differences, diversity as seriously as they should. And some things that my school did to help embrace diversity, they mainly did through me and a couple friends. And the dark side of that is that of you making change is that you'll never forget that the community you changed wasn't always like that. And Jose, your thing on mental health and the exacerbation of suicide stood out to me the most because I lost a friend to suicide just 7 days into 2021, as I told you earlier in a conversation before this. And are us audience members, Chancellor, able to give feedback on what can be improved on too?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
He asked if he could provide feedback on what could be improved.
You sure can.
Thank you. Well, first off, I'm glad that they have the suicide prevention program and Out of the Darkness walks at the end of the year. That's a lot of things. That's a few of many ways that Southern Illinois is way ahead of my old high school when it comes to mental health handling and awareness, especially since my old high school has had 7 students kill themselves in the last 8 years alone. And well, and one thing that can be improved upon is like having mental health awareness like in RSOs. And that's actually something I'm doing right now, putting together a club on my own, and gotten off to a good start.
Good. Great, that's great. Great job.
I'm glad to see that Southern Illinois is able to embrace diversity and handle mental health better than high school. That's what made my old high school environment toxic. I'm glad to be here.
What's your name again? Great job. Let's give a round of
Jason.
applause. Jason. Jason, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for that.
Hello, my name is Victor Ludwig. I'm also a freshman here, and it's one of the things I am glad to see other freshmen here. I'm glad to see some students here, but it would be better if I saw more. As the way I see it, inclusivity starts from the top down with institutions that exist, allowing people in, but diversity starts with people at the bottom, organizing together to accept one another and to force inclusivity upon the world. And I believe we can do as much as we want with making the changes to make inclusivity better, but you're just raising the bar of what we are allowed to achieve with that. We need to make sure that the student body rises up to meet the demands of minorities on campus. We don't have a student union, not even a Black student union. We don't have these brick and mortar social institutions to speak to the administration of this school. We don't have the collective bargaining measures to try and get things changed. With diversity, it's all about hearing the voice from every single individual, no matter what their difference is, no matter what their challenges have been, no matter what their background may be. And I feel like the one room that, while we've addressed many things that have been done to change inclusivity on this campus, and while you're moving in the right direction in that regard, there's not enough students in the room to make it all worth it. We can get rid of every limit upon every person, but it comes to the students here on campus to step up to this. So I want to see groups that can come together and help address problems on campus and help connect to the community, because contrary to popular opinion on campus, not everything is administration's fault. So I feel it's very important that we get students to take accountability and reaching these problems. And we see it happen in certain areas, but it seems very limited. We see organizations that many of you are a part of do amazing things in that regard, but there is a seeming lack of university community on this campus. Something that I would like to see us to be able to help each other, to provide mutual aid to each and every organization with each other. And I know it's a very hard thing to do, but I'm glad to start working on it now if that is the need that needs to be addressed, but it needs to be helped by administration. This inclusivity must trickle down in such a way that we see what we need to do. We see the steps laid out before us to act, to include, to be diverse, to provide equity and equality for people on campus and off. Thank you.
Oh, great job. Great job.
So you're a freshman.
Yes.
What is your major?
I'm going to be doing sociology and Africana.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. I
think,
just was so curious. I'm like, man, we've got like a
Yeah.
competitive public speaker amongst us.
I think Grace has a comment. I'll tell you what, we're looking at between you and Jason, the next USG president here, man. Great job. Just Grace, before you, I just want to say something to that. You know what, it gets a little disheartening sometimes when you come to an event like this that you would think would attract hundreds, but do not be discouraged, right? It only takes one person, it only takes a small group, I'm telling you, to really incite some major change. So it doesn't matter. You notice we've got the same energy with just a few in here, even if we had 100, 200.
Yeah.
There are things we can still do.
I might note very quickly too that this is like only the second annual Diversity Week. And last year we did this through a pandemic and most events were virtual. So this is really the first foundation that's being laid, and this is the first event we were able to do like this live. So hopefully this will become a tradition.
Absolutely.
And as members of our community continue to be involved in this dialogue, we'll see the volume of this room grow, is what my hopes are. Sorry, Grace. Sorry.
No, you're good. Thanks. Hi, remind me of your name again.
Victor.
Hi, Victor. First of all, so glad that you showed up. Second of all, just wanted to let you know about a few things on campus because we try our best to make sure all the students know, but I know you guys get a lot of information, especially during your first few weeks of freshman year. So we do have it's not called Black Student Union, but it's called Black Affairs Council. And we are the governing organization for right now about 15 active Black RSOs on campus, which goes from like Melanin in Medicine to National Society of Black Engineers to dance group, etc. And that's including Black Greeks. So, and we do have an office on the 3rd floor of the Student Center. And I'm also the VP of Student Affairs, which is basically like the student, which resembles a student council. And I invite you to come to the next meeting that will be 2 weeks from this past Tuesday. So we meet every other Tuesday at 6 p.m. And if you are in another organization or in a school, so I heard that you're doing Africana Studies, I don't know if you're doing a dual degree or a double major, but whichever school will be on your degree when you graduate, you can ask if they've chosen a senator as well, if you want to represent them. Every college or school gets 2 senators and certain councils get 2 senators, et cetera, et cetera. But you can also just be a senator at large. And we have literally a plethora of organizations that you can sit on as a senator. Every senator is required to sit on a certain council. Like if you wanted to be on the Chancellor's Diversity and Task Force, we need 2 senators to sit on that. We have a traffic council, we have a council for disability services, et cetera, et cetera. So I certainly invite you to become a part of that. And the undergraduate student government office is right next to the Black Affairs office on the 3rd floor of the Student Center. If you get on the elevator and you step off and look to the right, you literally cannot miss it. Hopefully we'll get the escalators fixed soon, hint, hint, wink, wink, so that people can find it.
Student Center?
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Grace. I'll make a note of that.
So people can find it a little better, but my office hours are 2 to 4 on Monday and Wednesday, and there's usually someone in the office. If you want to fill out the application / petition to become a senator at large, and we can definitely get you in touch with all those type of things on campus. And if you just want to talk to me after too, I can give you all that information as well.
Absolutely.
I wanted to, we're pretty much close to wrapping up at time, but I wanted to see if anybody else had any additional questions or comments. Okay, great. Oh, you got a microphone.
I'm just adding on to what Grace was saying and to add to what Victor was saying. For all of you students, keep fighting. And I will say this, that we know this of psychology from what we were describing, is that attitudinal change and people's minds and hearts change after we change policy. The reason we're all even sitting here now is because schools were desegregated. And now here we are talking about multiculturalism. When I think about when I was younger, as a gay man, I never thought that people could be out or gay marriage will be legal. And now I'm giving therapy to people who were like, I've been out since I was 12. But that's because policy changed first. And I think I heard you say it where if we have to drag people kicking and screaming into equity, that's what we will do. And just to remember that, policy change first. Hearts and minds will follow.
Woohoo.
I'd
All
like
right,
to
thank
say
you. I was just
something
gonna
too.
remind everybody that we do have other diversity events happening, diversity week events happening. So do remember to go on to our diversity.siu.edu page because we do have wonderful things happening tomorrow. Also, I don't want to eat those cookies, so on your way out,
Grab a cookie.
make sure to grab a cookie and the water. Just wanted to make that note. But Chancellor Lane, thank you so much. And I'm gonna leave you with the closing notes.
Yeah, this, again, I want to applaud our panelists. Could we give them another round of applause? John. I'm going to leave you with this because we talk about inclusivity and we talk about envisioning this. That's everybody. One group you didn't hear us talk about tonight, Caucasians, right? If we're going to be this environment that's really focused on change, we can't assume that just because you're white, everything's been right. Right? We can't assume that. We can't assume, well, like Jason here, right? Where he had to stand up in the face of adversity from people that even looked like him, but was still willing to do that. Okay, so I'm talking about creating an environment, as Dr. Fraser said, that's safe, right? That's respectful, right? And that we don't tear each other apart thinking that your experience or journey was not equal to mine. That's not fair. I can't tell you how many students we recruit from rural environments in Southern Illinois who are Caucasian, who have the same stories that I had when I grew up. I can't tell you the number of Caucasian students that have committed suicide, more than students even of color, because of them having to adjust. So we have to be very careful when we talk about it, right? I always say, walk the walk, talk the talk. It's got to be for everybody, right? Can't just be for one group, one group, one group. Now, yes, there's some areas, as you heard Dr. Lopez and others say, when it comes to faculty and staff and support, that we're lacking. I'll be the first to admit it. I would never say, oh, no, what are you talking about? We're lacking. We got work to do. But as you were saying, we can change the world right here in this room with this many people. You'd be shocked, right? The things you can do, right, to move the needle. Last example, when I showed up here, I had so many people saying this place is going down in the ground. Nobody wants to show up. Nobody cares about the university. The enrollment's declined. In 1 year, you talk about the power of trying to be strategic, trying to build relationships, trying to change the image. We've got the largest freshman class that we've had in the last 5 years. Okay? It can happen if you believe. So our shameless plug, imagine SIUC in 2030. Stop doubting. When you're imagining, you don't doubt, you don't think in a pessimistic way, you're dreaming of what we can become. And if that burns out, I think somebody said, if it just burns out when you get a little older, right, Chelsea? I think you said that, right? Don't let it burn out. We've got a lot of work to do. We're not perfect. We've got work to do, but you heard tonight from panelists how committed they are. And I know you are too in the audience. So let's go have some cookies. How about that? Thank you. Let's go eat.